Geobbl's propaganda is reborn. It would be useless on my part to attempt to deal at any length with the many nightmares and imaginary visions of a widespread plan for the extermination of Muslims in the state, which the Prime Minister of Pakistan has conjured up in the broadcast made from his sick bed. One might expect hallucinations in the state of frenzy, but the state of delirium which the broadcast most certainly exhibits cannot but have fulfilled his listeners and readers with amazement and apprehension. History has been dishonestly and mischievously distorted. Freebooters and looters have been dubbed as liberators and heroes. The wanton mass tragedies inflicted by the raiders on the innocent, helpless, and peaceful inhabitants of villages in the Happy Valley have been treated as matters of no consequence, and what is virtually an elaborately planned, fully equipped and professionally directed invasion from a friendly territory has been presented as a rising of the people against the tyranny of oppression of a ruling race. The grim tragedy which overtook British members of a religious order in Baramulla, the details of which are too heart-rending to tell, and the murder in cold blood of European families there are sufficient to reveal the true character of the so-called missionaries of liberation and emancipation. The ceaseless hysteric outbursts of the Prime Ministers of NWFP, together with the known composition of these raiders and their equipment, fully bear out the interest taken by a neighboring state, the leaders of which, more than anyone else, have constantly harped in the past on the independent character of the states after the lapse of paramountcy and the entire freedom of choice in the matter of accession vested upon the rulers. As if Kashmir alone was not an adequate target for the venomous shafts of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, he has encompassed within his indictment the states of Alwar, Bharatpur, Patiala, Faridkot, and Kapurthala, which, be it be noted, are the states that have acceded to Indian Union, a state which again Pakistan has friendly relations. As usual, however, facts have either been ignored or given a twist to suit the picture which the Prime Minister deliberately intended to overdraw. The troubles in Alwar and Bharatpur occurred when the Prime Minister of Pakistan was a distinguished member of the Indian cabinet, and the relationship with the states was, as he ought to have known, conducted by the Crown representative. The initiative in those disturbances was taken by VOs with whom the Jats and Rajputs have had occasional feuds. Houses of non-Muslims were burned, their cattle stolen, and their farms set on fire. I have no doubt that but for the poison of hate and communal virus which has been injected into the body politic by the League propaganda of the two-nation theory, this feud like many others, would have been settled in a satisfactory manner. Geobbl's propaganda is reborn. It would be useless on my part to attempt to deal at any length with the many nightmares and imaginary visions of a widespread plan for the extermination of Muslims in the states, which the Prime Minister of Pakistan has conjured up in the broadcast made from his sick bed. One might expect hallucinations in a state of frenzy, but the state of delirium which the broadcast most certainly exhibits cannot but have filled his listeners and readers with amazement and apprehension. History has been dishonestly and mischievously distorted. Freebooters and looters have been dubbed as liberators and heroes. The wanton and mass tragedies inflicted by the raiders on the innocent, helpless, and peaceful inhabitants of the villages in the Happy Valley have been treated as matters of no consequence, and what is virtually an elaborately planned, fully equipped, and professionally directed invasion from a friendly territory has been presented as a rising of the people against the tyranny and oppression of the ruling race. The grim tragedy which overlooked the British members of a religious order in Baramulla, the details of which are too heart-rending to tell, and the murder in cold blood of European families there are sufficient to reveal the true character of the so-called missionaries of liberation and emancipation. The ceaseless hysteric outbursts of the Prime Minister of the NWFP, together with the known composition of these raiders and their equipment, fully bear out the interest taken by the neighboring state, the leaders of which more than anyone else have constantly harped in the past on the independent character of the states after the lapse of paramountcy and the entire freedom of choice in the matter of accession vested to the rulers. As if Kashmir alone was not an adequate target for the venomous shafts of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, he has encompassed with his indictment the states of Alwar, Bharatpur, Patiala, Faridkot, and Kapurthala, which, be it noted, are the states that have acceded to Indian territory. A state which is again Pakistan has friendly relations. As usual, however, facts have been either ignored or given a twist to suit the picture which the Prime Minister deliberately intended to overdraw. The troubles in Alwar and Bharatpur occurred when the Prime Minister of Pakistan was a distinguished member of the Indian cabinet, and the relationship with the states was, as he ought to have known, conducted by the Crown representative. The initiative in those disturbances was taken by Mews, with whom the Jats and the Rajputs have had occasional feuds. Houses of non-Muslims were burned, their cattle stolen, and their farms set on fire. I have no doubt that but for the poison of hate and communal virus which has been injected into the body politic by the League propaganda of the two-nation theory, this feud, like many others, would have been settled in a satisfactory and amicable manner. Instead, interested parties from outside took a hand until a situation was reached when neither side could give to the other any mercy. Nevertheless, news in thousands have returned to these states, and those that wish to go neither persuasion or argument would succeed in restraining, for they know the destructible destruction of the non-Muslim homes and property which they have wrought. They know it well. As regards the states of Patiala, Faridkot and Kapurthala, I see no reason why Pakistan Prime Minister should have, unless it were for his own ulterior ends, isolated them from the general flare-up which has overtaken the East and West Pakistan, and for which not a single community is to blame entirely. If the rulers of these states have not been able to prevent communal disturbances to a degree which would have prevented evacuation of Muslims, they share the discredit with other governments, including Pakistan government, who so ignominiously failed to arrest the tide. The Pakistan Prime Minister talks of a widespread plan for extermination of Muslims. Of course, it did not suit his purpose to mention the brutal and mass murders which have taken place in state, which was quite susceptible to their influence and which had some time ago acceded to Pakistan Federation, namely the state of Bahawalpur, where non-Muslims have been having great problems, untold losses in men, women and children and property. But obviously Pakistan holds that what is sauce for Pakistan goose cannot be sauce for Indian jatter. While non-Muslims can be exterminated ruthlessly and without remorse from Pakistan and its neighboring states, producing an inevitable reaction in the Hindu Union, the blame must rest with the latter, for the inhabitants of the latter have refused to submit to the fate of their co-religionists in the former. It is this that prevented logic on which the whole conception and policy of government of Pakistan are based. And it is this perverted logic which the Pakistan Prime Minister has left to his appreciative audience and the world to judge. The Pakistan Prime Minister has also made the following statement. When we asked the Indian government to protect the Muslims in the states, we were told that these events were the state's internal affairs and the Indian government could not interfere. Whenever this question was broached between the two governments, the limitations imposed by the constitutional relationship on interference in the internal administration of a state were mutually recognized. The last time when this was formally placed on record was when the representatives of two governments met in Delhi on September 19. In fact, in the past, the League leaders have themselves been loud in their protestations of the absolute independence and sovereignty of the states on the laps of paramount sea, both in the internal and external spheres. It doesn't now lie in the mouth of the Pakistan Prime Minister to twist the constitutional relationship between the Union and the acceding states in such a manner as to convey the impression that Indian Union did not intervene while tragedies were overtaking the Muslim population in these states. If he is serious or sincere, let him first set his own house in order and take action against Bhavalpur, that state which has acceded to Pakistan and which is no less guilty of atrocities and cruelties than the state in the Indian Union referred to by him. With the Pakistan government, however, it is quite clear that such distortions, misrepresentations, concealments, and grossly prejudiced and unbalanced versions are becoming tricks of the trade. Before the last war and during it, the whole population of the world had become familiar with the kind of propaganda which was associated with the name of the late Dr. Geobbl. The propaganda is now reborn, but I am sure the world to whose judgment the Prime Minister of Pakistan has left matters will not be cheated, will not be deceived. And that's what he must understand and consider.